So this is Sahira, and I'm getting in front of a camera again, and I'm a little bit nervous again. I got a new toy. I got a tripod so that I could have better equipment for doing my videos, and I'm just getting to know it. So tripod is up, camera is on the tripod, and I don't have to hold it. Okay, so topic at hand. My last two videos have been very emotional, and I've been talking about work issues without talking about what the issues were, just conveying my emotional terrain. And I initially had the intention that I wanted to continue to document my situation because I wanted advocacy any way I could get it. And so I wanted to publicize the situation. And then from another perspective, I just wanted to release emotionally as well. And then I had a big shift in my being, and which I will explain in more detail in a minute. And it was like a switch flipped, and I no longer wanted to give energy to the situation. No longer wanted to document it. It's like I'm in a completely different space, and that might change again as well. But to bring what I hope will be closure to this topic, I wanted to say what happened, because I think it needs to be said. But I'm not going to say where I work. I'm not going to say who I'm talking about, but I am going to say what I am talking about, because I think that what happened was wrong, and I think that it remains wrong whether anybody admits it or not, and I just want to name it. So I work in a place that has a mask mandate, and it's been through different phases according to CDC recommendations. And there was the pre-vaccination phase, and then the vaccination phase, and things got a little bit more relaxed for people who were vaccinated, and then they switched it back again. That's my understanding of the situation. So there was a mask mandate in the beginning that everyone had to wear a mask, basically, if they left their desks. And we were also telecommuting, so we were in a checkerboard pattern. There weren't as many people in the building, so we were socially distanced and supposed to wear a mask anytime we leave our desk. And during the times that I was in office, I noticed people around me consistently walking by my desk and not wearing a mask. And they would kind of talk to each other and say, well, I'm not that worried about it. Are you worried about it? Is it okay if I don't wear a mask? Are you okay with that? And they would make these agreements with each other and just not wear a mask and not be socially distanced either. So the mask mandate was being violated, and I noticed, and I was a little bit nervous, but I reported it to my supervisor. And when word got around when the people were spoken to men near me, got very angry about being reported. And I don't think they knew that it was me because it came through my supervisor. But my supervisor at the time was working from home 100%. So these men got very irate and wanted to know how she knew who was it. And they were behaving in what I felt was a threatening way. And given the national terrain that we are in, and the fact that some Trump supporters, anti-maskers, are literally killing people who ask them to wear a mask, I felt that this was a very serious situation. And from that point forward, I was afraid of my coworkers. And I envisioned, well, we have metal detectors and we have security guards, and I think metal detectors, maybe not, but we have security guards, and in theory, a person wouldn't bring a gun into the building, but I was worried from then forward that if they're anti-maskers, they're that irate, they're probably Trump supporters, they could be gun owners. What's going to happen to me? Could something happen to me in the parking lot? I've been worried. I've been worried about myself. I've been worried about my supervisor. I've been worried about my daughter. Hence my emotional state. Because I live in a rural area, that even though I live in a democratic state, I'm starting to sense and realize that I'm in an area that's heavily populated by the opposite camp. And the more the situation evolves, the greater the possibility that violence could break out and that this could be a life-threatening situation. So I have had a hard time with all of this. And simultaneously not really feeling like I trust anyone, not really feeling that I can just be myself and talk about it and get support. There's the sense that it's not really appropriate to talk about politics at work anyways. And everyone is so polarized right now, and it feels like there's the potential for violence to erupt anytime. If we did try to talk about it, there's the potential for a big shouting match, which is not desirable for the workplace. So I try not to talk about my politics at work, but the people around me were talking about their politics all the time, and I felt intimidated in the situation. But I didn't feel that I could address it, because where would I address it? Where would the support come from? And so this has been going on, and then I applied for a promotion that I was very well qualified for. And what happened was that one of the angry men that I reported got the promotion, and the other angry man that I reported, I ended up being placed directly under him. And I consider that to be extremely inappropriate. In a large organization, and given that I went through my supervisor, I acknowledge the possibility that maybe the people making the hiring decision did not even know about any of this. Maybe it wasn't on their radar. Maybe they were just looking at the giant managerial chessboard of vacancies and items, and they, for some reason, chose this other man, and maybe in their minds it had nothing to do with any of this. Maybe it was in their minds a legitimate reason why they thought he was better. And the person that is now my supervisor was his supervisor, so maybe in their minds it was just logical placement, this one here, this one there. I acknowledge that possibility, that the people making the hiring and placement decisions did not know. But when I showed great emotional distress, someone in management noticed and asked me what was wrong, and I relayed everything. Then they knew. And they still didn't move me into a better situation. And not only did they not move me, but it seemed like they were sympathetic with the men. Well, that's a perfectly natural response for them to have, and I don't think so. I don't think that this is a natural response period to have to safety protocol during a pandemic, and I certainly don't think it's a natural response for people in supervisory positions to have. I had some discussion where there was some push and pull about exactly what the policy was. They said page so-and-so, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, and if you're socially distanced and in a room, and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, all of this happened before vaccinations were a thing, and there was just one policy. If you leave your desk, you're wearing a mask, and they were not, and that was wrong. And their anger towards me was wrong. It was not natural. It was wrong. And for the agency, for the management to be supportive of those men was wrong. And for the agency and the management to keep me in the situation that I was clearly distressed about was wrong. It was wrong, and it is wrong, and it continues to be wrong, and no one is acknowledging it. There's now the woman I was under before was a wonderful supervisor, and she was compassionate, and she was smart, and we had a great relationship, and she was very supportive of me getting the promotion, which would be under her, and it all got torn apart, and an excellent situation destroyed and made into something distressful that I am not getting any empathy about. And the whole chain of command that I am in now feels like they are Trump supporters. It feels like they are very conservative. And it's very unpleasant for me. So I've been having panic attacks and trauma going on. I took lots of time off just to try and recover my emotions so that I could be functional at work. And then I was harassed about the time that I was taken off. And even though I had already explained how upset I was and that I had panic attacks, I had my supervisor, who was the topic of my panic attacks, being, I guess, instructed. I assume instructed, unless it was coming from him. Either it was coming from him or from over him, to harass me about the time I was taking off and to ask me why. To ask me what's wrong. Like they don't know what's wrong when I already explained what's wrong, and they saw how distressed I was, how sadistic to ask what you already know, and to ask the person to explain what is already known, and to confront their own intimidator. I just didn't answer any questions. And then there was some upsetness about me not responding, and eventually I erupted. I said, I don't like the way I'm being treated. I feel that my current supervisor is very dominating and ranges from being intimidating to being nothing, just completely impersonal, work data only. He obviously wants my work, but I feel like an object, a thing, like a stapler or a computer that is advantageous to him, but I don't feel valued as a person anymore by any of them. And it hurts. So my emotions were escalating and escalating and escalating. I was in a state of trauma, and I desperately wanted to get out of the situation, but they're not moving me. And the thought of quitting my job came to me, and I was that desperate that I felt like maybe it's worth the financial risk to just exit the situation. But then I asked myself, where will I go? How do I know that the next place won't be just as bad, given that there are lots of them around? Maybe I should keep my salary. Maybe I should keep my 4 weeks of vacation time. Maybe I should keep, and now I'm telecommuting 100% because of my back injury. What happens if my next job won't let me do that? There are advantages to staying, and I've gone through different chapters, different perspectives, different ways of turning this, looking at it, trying to figure out how best to handle it. And obviously talking about it is bringing up my pain again, but apart from that, I've been feeling better these days. It's just that talking about it reawakens it. So that is what happened, and I hope, what was I going to say? He went on vacation, and when he went on vacation, I finally got some relief. And I finally got to have contact with other people who are not mean to me. And I felt so much better that even when he came back from vacation, I continued to feel better. And then I went to a concert. It's the first big live concert I've ever been to. I went to New York City and I saw Aurora. And for anyone who's not familiar with Aurora, she's a beautiful spiritual being. And I somehow encountered her videos on YouTube and I was immediately moved by her spiritual presence, and her voice is absolutely angelic, and it doesn't matter if she's singing or just talking, and it doesn't matter what she's talking about. I'm very sensitive to vocal tones, and just as I am completely terrified of my supervisor because of his voice and his face and what is being transmitted through his voice and his face, I am totally healed by Aurora's face and voice and presence. And I feel so grateful that I spontaneously decided I am going to see Aurora. It's a big and scary thing. I have to somehow get myself to New York City and work out all these details and pay all this money. I don't care. I'm going. I just decided, and I invited my daughter and her boyfriend, and we all went to New York City, and she helped me work out some of the details of lodging and transportation, and I paid for the event, and we went. And I tell you, I felt like I went on a spiritual retreat, and maybe part of it is just a change of scenery, just being someplace else and having reality shaken up because I'm out of my normal routine. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe being in New York City instead of where I live was part of it, just because it's new and different and exciting. But Aurora is a beautiful being, and listening to her live is a blessing. It was a blessing to me, and even my daughter said the same. And she was crying, and she said it was just so moving and healing. When I came back from that trip, I felt like I got spiritual assistance. I felt like an advanced spiritual being somehow got inside me and just cleaned everything out. And I felt different, and I felt lighter, and I felt healed, and I felt happy again. And when I came back, I was in a different space, entirely a different world. And I just thought to myself, I don't want to go back to the hell that I was in. I don't want to allow these people to have the power to do this to my mind and my emotions, to make me feel this way, to make me feel that life isn't worth living anymore, to make me feel this afraid or this enraged or this discouraged about life. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. I don't want to resurrect the space that I was in before. And I just really committed myself. I'm not going back to how I felt before. And thankfully, nothing more has happened in the present moment that is directly triggering. Thankfully. Most of what was happened was that my mind was looping around the things that had already happened and feeling so emotional about it that I just couldn't let it go. And I was afraid that more would happen. And I don't like the way he communicates even under the best of circumstances, even when he's not being directly intimidating. It's the fact that he's completely dismissive of the fact that I'm a person. He's not friendly. He's not kind at all. And I feel like the people around me support him. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm wrong, show me. If you're a wonderful, beautiful person, show me. A normal person, if they knew that someone was terrified of them, in deep despair about having to work under them, they would feel compassionate. They would be like, my God, I would never want to make you or anyone else feel like that. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you were afraid. I'm sorry I was angry. Or I'm sorry it's stress. It's not personal, it's stress, and I'm deeply sorry, and I'll try, something. But there's been nothing but a sense of entitlement to continue to be that way. Anyways, my vow to myself was not to allow them to get into my brain and into my being, and to hold on to the light that and the healing that I received. This video being the exception, of course, because it is kind of pulling me back down again. But anytime the voice and the face comes, anytime I remember a past moment or anticipate a possible future moment that is frightening, that is intimidating, that is dominating, I just say, no, thank you. Out of my brain. No conservatives allowed in my brain. Out of my brain. You don't belong here. You don't live here. I have not invited you here. Get out. And I say to myself, this server is involved in too many other projects. This server is too busy for any further connections. Access denied. The end. And every time the temptation comes up to be upset, to imagine things, I turn it off. I do my best to turn it off, so that I can stay buoyant. And I have a dream of being a yoga teacher, and all of my energy has been sucked into the despair and the terror and the rage about the politics that we are in, and the both collectively as a country and individually, me in my workplace with these people. And it's stealing my life from me. And I can't allow that. So I say no. Every time the temptation comes, I say no. I cut it off at the quick as soon as I can, instead of allowing my mind to loop around and my emotions to become in a state of trauma as a result of them. And if that doesn't work, I try what Aurora does many times when she's performing. She just does this. And I remember hearing an interview with her, and she was talking about that, and she said, I noticed that the dogs do that they shake it out, and I figure if it's good for the dogs, maybe it's good for me too. And if you watch her, she does it a lot, and sometimes I do it now. If my mind gets that temptation to be upset about these people, just shake like a dog. And if that doesn't work, my hands are on my heart. I just stop everything. My hands are on my heart, and I take 3 conscious breaths until I am recentered. And so far, so good. so far, so good. And I've been taking yoga teacher training in the past year, and I'm nearly at the end. I'm nearly ready to submit my yoga teacher certification video, and that is where my energy needs to be. This is what I realized, is that, my goodness, no one knows what's going to happen from one minute to the next. No one knows if we're going to still have a democracy. No one knows if there might be a civil war. No one knows if we might be the next to die of COVID-19, or if we might be the next to have our brains shot out by a Trump supporter. No one knows anything from one minute to the next. And if there's a possibility that my life is going to be cut short by a Trump supporter and their anger and their entitlement, all the more reason for me to live my life now and not to allow them to steal my life now while I'm still alive. I have a life to live. And this is what I realized. I refuse to allow them to steal my life. Psychologically, I refuse to allow them to have that power. I'm taking it back, and I'm pouring my energy into my spiritual life, and I'm pouring my energy into my yoga teacher training and my yoga practice and healing my back because I have chronic back issues. My attention needs to be on that and on creating as much beauty as I can and being as peaceful as I can so that I can spread as much peace as I can, because the world is in distress and we need as many peacemakers as possible. So I aspire and I commit and I intend to not allowing them to traumatize me, and instead to pour my energy into my creative endeavors and my spiritual endeavors to the best of my ability. And from there, to help others by offering yoga or offering Reiki or even by telling my story. So that's my commitment. And I've been feeling more peace and more joy than I have since 2016 and everything that has happened. And that's what I want to continue doing. So, I intend that I will be doing yoga videos as soon as I can figure out the technology of how to get the right visuals, because I have a learning curve with that. It isn't just a learning curve of learning how to speak in front of a camera, but there's another learning curve of getting the camera to capture my yoga practice, whether I'm standing or sitting. I have things to learn before I can feel comfortable, but I want to be doing yoga videos and offering yoga classes, both free and hopefully income producing as well. And that's what I want to do with my life, not have it be consumed by people that I consider to be monsters. And if they're not monsters, then now is their wonderful opportunity to show what wonderful people they are and what beautiful things they are doing to make the world a beautiful place, as opposed to trying to prevent an election from occurring as opposed to violently attacking police officers, as opposed to threatening to violently attack politicians that they disagree with, as opposed to murdering cashiers for asking them to wear a mask, as opposed to getting angry about having to wear a mask during a pandemic. These are not examples of beauty. These are not examples of kindness. These are not examples of goodness. So if they want people to like them and they want people to think that they're likable, then now is their opportunity to be more likable. Because when you're beautiful, people fall at your feet. They don't run away. they are not terrified. If you are beautiful, I'm sorry, but this is the truth. Instead of being angry if someone if someone chooses to no longer engage with you because of your politics, maybe become more beautiful so that people will feel comfortable wanting to engage with you. The person I'm currently under actually got angry because I went into silence, and my silence was a combination of a conscious choice because I wanted to recover my inner balance. And I'm a very spiritual person, and meditation is part of it, and silence is part of it. It's a big part of my life. And I'm introvert by nature, unless I'm really safe and comfortable. I'm a quiet person anyways, but with the situation that the way it was, I went into panic attacks, and I was freezing up. When I'm having panic attacks, at times I'm literally unable to speak because I can't even think or speak. And rather than having a compassionate response, the response was, it sounded like he was angry and offended, and that I was being relentlessly bullied into responding. And that's not inspiring me to want to engage. And I don't know if this particular situation is even able to be repaired. And that's what I told my management. You need to move me because this is not going to improve. It's not going to get better over time. It just is the way it is, and I need to be moved. And I still haven't been moved. And I don't know what's behind that, if it's intentional hostility or if it's just because they're so understaffed that they can't. But compassion would be nice. They moved me really quickly when they wanted to, so I don't understand why they can't move me equally quickly out of compassion. But they're not, and some part of me just realizes that I can be upset until the cows come home, and it's not going to change a thing. It's not going to change anything nationally. It's not going to change anything individually. People are the way they are, and so I have to try within that to stay anchored into my spiritual core and to not allow them to throw me. And I feel grateful that I got the experience with Aurora that felt like a retreat and that felt healing, because it was like a new beginning. It was as if everything before got erased and I was back in the present, in spirit. And this is a long video to talk about something I hope to be finished talking about. And I just want to breathe and maybe do a practice or something. I'm going to do my little song again. I do this every morning. My mind is washed and cleansed with pure light and pure love. My mind is washed and cleansed with pure light and pure love. you for hearing my story. Blessings and peace in these troubled times. Stay strong. Be well. Bye-bye.